Oh no, not again. I was getting extremely tired of ending up like this. My head was about to explode. Damn headache. There was a backpack with some wood and some iron in it. It should be useful at a later time. After a while, it dawned on me that Timmy was here too. He had difficulty walking. He appeared to have broken his leg, and he also complained of a headache. We were in some kind of valley and there was a ruin next to us. But for now, I had to find some food, and we might also have to look into getting some kind of shelter made that we could stay in until his legs were better. Maybe we could use the ruin for that. I had to wait a bit to find out what was in the surrounding area. But as it stands now, it wasn't a place I knew. The crystal was gone. Maybe it was back in George's tower. I wasn't sure, but it didn't seem to work. But first, I need to find some food. There were lots of animals nearby, so I made a pen, so it was possible to get some food and some wool. Maybe I could make an airship so I could take Timmy with me when I had to go out and see what was in the area. Then I started to build a shed so that we could be sheltered from the wind and the weather. I started by moving Timmy into the ruin, and then I built a small cabin around him. I discovered that he was no longer a child, and that perhaps I had been too good at teaching him to cook. He had at least put on a little weight, because he had become quite heavy. I almost gasped at the thought of carrying him over to an airship, but we would cross that bridge when we got to it. But with the cabin built, we would be able to keep warm while we slept and be protected from creeps at night. I had promised myself that Timmy wouldn't have to experience the same thing that happened to his parents. Even though he was now big enough to fend for himself, it might break him completely if I disappeared too. But enough of that. The cabin was about to be finished, and then it would be good to get some food. The next day, I went out to find some resources so we could get started on making that airship and get Timmy to a doctor or similar if possible in a village or a town. I was lucky to find some redstone, iron, and some copper, but otherwise it was not a great harvest. But it was enough to make an airship. When the airship was finished, we packed the most necessary things into the bag. Timmy helped out by carefully limping out to the airship, and off we went. I was still hoping that we would pass something I had seen before, but I was starting to lose hope. We started the engine and began our journey. I didn't know if we would find something quickly, or if we would have to fly for a week before something came along to help us get on the right path. We flew over the mountain top and through a valley filled with large pine trees. It still took a few days to fly, so we had to take turns sleeping in the airship. We didn't sleep very well, but the few hours we got were enough to keep us going, and we had enough food and water to last a few weeks. But it was a beautiful place, and this time there was not so much snow to see. It was probably for the best, because I was a bit tired of snow. It was also warmer in the air, and despite Timmy's pain, I caught him sitting and smiling a little once in a while. He seemed somewhat happier. Maybe it was just because he wasn't alone, or maybe because it was warmer than where he came from. Whatever, we were here now. I scanned the landscape all the time to see if there was a landmark or a village, but there was only a lush landscape with lots of trees, grassy areas, lakes, and rivers. As we got further, the grass became more and more yellow, and I thought we might be crossing a savanna. I loved the savanna at home, the heat and the dry air, and the animals grazing under the shade of the acacia trees. There was just something magical about it. Further on, I could make out the silhouette of a village. Maybe they could help Timmy with his leg. Even though the village was relatively large, there weren't many people to be seen. We landed on the roof of a building, but a zombie blanket. The person who lived there must have been a bit of a monster slayer, until they weren't anymore. When I found the last remaining villagers, I spoke to them and they wanted to help, and told me that to the east there was a town where there was a doctor. They seemed very helpful, but at the same time very sad. When I asked what had happened to the village, they said that there were once almost 50 residents in the village, but a horde of zombies had taken them all. Now they were only 3, and they didn't know how to reproduce. So I helped show them how to become more. and showed them how they could keep bringing more life to the city. I also promised them to spread the word about the almost empty city when we got to the other city. Maybe there were some who wanted to move out and start a new life with them. On my way back, I saw the city statue and thought back to the other statue that I got advice from. This one didn't look like someone who would give good advice. Once again, I packed our things. It wasn't much, but I had been given some bread as a thank you for the help, and then we took to the skies.